Hey.
Hey, there we go. Are you like is your account private?
No, I just I don't know, I messed it up. I didn't join before you went looking for me, so
Oh, okay.
yeah.
It's weird. Normally I can just type your name and it would show up, but it wasn't even showing up at all. Odd.
Yeah, technology doesn't like me too much, but that's fine. That's fine.
Well, you're here now. Uh,
I'm here. That's all that matters.
Kaylee worked with me back in the Kipo days. For any of you who want some insider info questions, secret Kipo info.
Oh boy.
But
I
you were
have
basically you were in school. Was it your summer vacation? What was it? You were doing like
Yeah.
a internship.
Yeah, it was summer vacation of like 2018, and it was like I had just switched majors. I had
Yeah.
just completed my first year of animation school, and then like I applied to DreamWorks, and by some great stroke of luck got to interview and then got to intern on your show.
Cool. And I'm curious because like I didn't go to art school. What is that experience like doing an internship?
um well, it depends. Like summer internships when you're in art school are like really chill because you're not trying to do anything else, right? Like you're not, and a lot of the times they like to have juniors and sophomores as interns,
Yeah.
because like they want to get people who are still in school who have time to like use what they learned from the internship before they graduate.
Okay.
um but I mean, like, basically I just found a room for rent in like Burbank somewhere in this tiny little
Oh.
house. Yeah.
Oh,
In
so
this
you weren't
like,
commuting from where's Fullerton? You weren't commuting?
no, because
Okay.
I mean, like, I was lucky because my parents were willing to help me kind of like rent a room out there. I mean, but also like you're getting paid. Like you get
Yeah.
paid from the internship. So the pay that you get from the internship is enough to like rent a room in
Yeah.
somebody's house, and then enough for like groceries, and like that's pretty much it.
Okay.
Um
Okay.
so found this tiny little room in this tiny little house to rent in a bathroom that like I could not turn around in the shower. And then I just commuted from there to DreamWorks, and like I've I think it was like the first day or maybe the second day of the internship, I freaked out so hard because I was gonna be like late to work because I got locked out of the house, and I like didn't like have everything I needed to like go to work, and my car keys were in the house, and like it was just a huge debacle.
Oh
Um,
man.
but it ended up being fine. I was like, my hair is wet. I have no shoes. Like,
Is that was your first day on Kipo or that was a different one?
I think it was the first day, yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, that's too funny.
And I was just like, everything's fine. It's totally fine. We're just going to go to the neighbor across the street. Like,
And so then I assume you went back to school?
yeah. So that, like, honestly, I was kind of bummed because my internship on Kipo was cut like 2 weeks short because I had to be an RA, or like I was able to be an
Yeah.
RA, like a resident advisor, at my university. And like I needed that job to help pay for tuition. So like I couldn't be like, oh no, I don't really want to do that. Like I needed that job and I couldn't say no, and they wouldn't let me like come in 2 weeks late into
Yeah.
training. So I had to leave 2 weeks early, which was like a huge bummer because I didn't get to celebrate with all the other interns at like the end.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so then I just went back to school and did my like RA stuff. And I mean, like if you're an RA, you get free room and board, which is great. Like if you need that, but
Yeah.
it's also like a huge struggle to be an RA and do all the things that is required of RAs and still keep up with your schoolwork.
Yeah.
And like still have any kind of social life, because essentially like you are counselor, you are security guard, you are like rule enforcer, right? And
Yeah.
like, you know, the building I worked in like flooded twice. There were like two fires. So like, you know, it was a little chaotic.
And this reminded me of my college days a long time ago.
Yeah, so I was just like, man, I was a college student, and I was like sitting there being all like a grumpy old person annoyed at college students.
Yeah, man, I love that first year of college when for me, I lived in a dorm, and it's like for me it was like, oh, the first time out of your house and you're just on your own and you're having a good time, like
And you're like, woohoo!
that was a lot of fun. I basically skateboarded all day other than going to class.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta say, like, I don't know what it was, but when I was at Cal Poly for my first 3 years, when I was like, you know, doing environmental engineering, like the classwork and the classes I was taking were just like so labor intensive and so hard that I found it like, and I skipped, like I popped around majors a lot. So like I started in the wrong major. And then
Yeah.
I was like, okay, got to get to environmental engineering instead of environmental science.
Yeah.
And then once I got there, I was like, oh no, this isn't what I want, I think. And then so like the last semester of Cal Poly that I was there, I was actually a fine art student.
Yeah.
So it was a struggle.
Yeah,
But like,
I had a weird opinion of school. My my parents didn't go to college,
mm.
and they had the opinion, like my dad told me, he's like a college degree is pretty useless. Like
And
he
you were
didn't
like,
give
oh
a
no.
shit. And then I had met some people, and I just had this opinion that like nobody does their major. Like they just go to school, pick a random major, you get your degree, and then you go do something else. So like I
Mm-hmm.
did mechanical engineering. I was never actually planning to be an engineer. I
Oh
was
my
just like,
God.
oh, I'll just get this degree, and then I'll go become. I was gonna become a comic strip artist.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like my experience was probably the opposite because like my mom is a teacher
Mm-hmm.
and my dad's an electrician. And like he did go to school for like city planning.
Yeah.
But then once he got there, like with a bunch of other young dudes at the time, the older guys in city planning didn't want to change anything and whatever. So all the
Yeah.
young guys just left and did something else. But like my mom was always like, you're going to go to college, you're going to get a degree. Like it's, even if like you don't end up doing the thing you get a degree in, like
Yeah.
having a degree makes you more like eligible for just jobs in general.
Mm-hmm.
Like even if it makes you super overqualified, like if you like, which I will probably be doing soon, if you apply to be like a grocery store clerk and they're like, oh, you have a degree, it for some reason it just makes you like more eligible.
Yeah. 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 I yeah, because I got the degree. I wasn't planning on being an engineer, but it was also different. Like when I went to school, it was like $1,000 a term, and
I'll
so
cry.
we were on a trimester, so that's like $3,000 a year.
Oh my God.
Um, so it wasn't a big deal. It was like, oh yeah, just go get this degree, no big
Yeah.
deal.
Uh,
But now I actually feel like it's something you got to weigh a bit more,
mm-hmm.
and I'm almost more of the opinion now, like you don't necessarily have to get one. Like it's fine if you feel like that's too much of a financial burden, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
it's a totally different world now.
It's so like overwhelmingly expensive. And if you can get out of college without debt, like you're super lucky.
Yeah.
Super lucky. And it's like, even if, you know, I know especially like storyboard artists who may have gotten like a storyboard job right out of school, but it still took them like 5 to 10 to 15 years to pay off their student debt, depending on like how big
Yeah.
it is. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm 40 years old, and I have friends that are my age that still haven't paid off their student debt. And
that makes me depressed.
And then, like, I remember I had one friend, just his interest was like, I want to say over $1,000 a month, and he couldn't even pay the interest. So it just kept racking. It's like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah. Yeah. College loans are like really predatory. Like as a practice, like they know that you're not going to make enough coming out of school, and the interest rates are way too insanely high. And it's like, if you have parents that are willing to help you financially and you can go get a degree and you can have that college experience, like go for it. Like there's a lot of good things that come out of it. Like most of my networking came out of it, and a lot of internships don't let you apply unless you were like enrolled at a school, which I think is not exactly fair.
I will say your school is Cal State Fullerton, right?
No, it's Chapman.
Oh, sorry. I don't know why I thought you went to Fullerton.
Well, because we're like right next to Fullerton.
Oh, you're nearby. Okay.
Yeah, we're close.
You guys have an insanely amazing live action program. I know that for sure, right?
Yeah.
I came and visited, and I was like pretty blown away.
Oh yeah.
How's the animation program there?
I think it's still pretty young, right? So it's like 12 years old, I think, maybe 13.
Yeah.
Something like that. So like, and the facility that like I had all my education in, like the DMAC, it's also really young, because like I want to say like 5 to 10 years ago, like the animation students were in the basement of the library, and like they did not have Cintiqs. It was only like CG, and so like the Dodge kids, they didn't have that fancy, like amazing facility. They were in like what is now the University Honors Building, which is just like normal, tiny little like classrooms. So like for being a new program, I think that it definitely like covers all the basics really well. One of the problems with like going to school for animation is like, you're going to school for animation and you might have like 1 or 2 storyboarding classes, but unless you take classes outside your college, you're not gonna learn to storyboard at the level you need, like coming out of a college animation program.
That's another thing that's very different than when I was graduating school. So like when I went to college, I had never typed. I didn't even know how to type. I didn't know how to use a computer. Like the internet was like pretty new actually. So like I couldn't go online and find out about animation. So like towards my senior years, they started to be these like drawing forums. Like there was the Shanglines drawing board. There was maybe this thing called like conceptart.org or something. There were these different drawing boards, and people started to post, and you started to meet people. But this was like, I was already a senior in college before you even met. You were able to meet people online.
Yeah.
And then I met a lot of friends on the Shanglines drawing board, and I actually drove down to LA to meet some people, and people were working at studios, and I would do a storyboard. I would drop it off at like Nickelodeon. I would get the rejection call. You'd physically have to show up and pick up your portfolio by hand because it wasn't emailed. You felt like garbage every single time. You're like, oh God, they hate me.
Yeah.
And then I would find like a friend I had met on a message board and have them look at my portfolio, tell me what I did wrong. I'd make a new one. I'd apply again. Eventually I got a job that way.
Yeah.
But if you look at the level I was at as a student, it relative to the level kids are, a totally different thing. Like, because no one was able to get the information, nobody knew what they were doing, they were more likely to bring you in at a more junior level.
Yeah.
without knowing much. And I had a mentor that just trained me on the job for 2 years.
Ugh.
And that was like going to school. So someone just sat there and every board I drew, he drew over every panel. And
Yeah.
his name was Jeff Lunch. He had a story on Iron Giant, and he worked on all the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, and
like legendary.
Yeah, and he just every single panel he adjusted the angles and adjusted the cameras and told me not to cut and how to do a camera move instead of cutting, and and then I remember every board after about 6 months he started to not draw over every single panel. It started to be like, okay, these 3 panels are fine. We're gonna have to fix all the rest of them. And then finally, I think after like a year, he went up to every single panel and he's like, okay, this one's fine. Okay, this one's fine. Okay, this one's fine. And I got through a whole sequence where he didn't have to change anything. And that was how I learned how to storyboard. But now I see these 15-year-old, 16-year-old kids who are already better than professionals who had just learned online.
Yep. And then it's just like, I can't, and like, I wasn't, like, I feel a little bit of a disconnect with my own generation because like as a kid and as like a middle schooler, high schooler, I wasn't actually on the internet that much. Like I was on DeviantArt a little bit. Don't even look for that. That account is gone.
Oh man, I still have one of those accounts.
But like, and I was on it a little bit, and like, I got a tiny bit into like the Gravity Falls fandom way back in the day, but like other than that, kind of nothing. And so I wasn't on like forums. Like I didn't even know about forums, honestly. And
they might have been before you. I don't know if they were still happening. Maybe DeviantArt was popular.
Yeah, DeviantArt had a lot of like forums, and then people started to go into like Discord and make Discord servers. I know ArtStation was like really popular. It still is, but I'm not really on there. But yeah, I mean,
Blogger.
like,
Do you remember the Blogger era?
Oh my God.
Now I feel like it's like traveling the Old West and coming across a ghost town. If you see a blogger, you're like, oh, Blogger. I remember when people came to these.
Yeah, no, I think when I was in like high school and I was getting really into like environmentalism and sustainability, I made a blog that was about like being sustainable and like how, like how you could like be more sustainable as a regular person and like blah, blah, blah. I was that kid, and like, I was like co-president of like the environmental club, like,
Oh man.
But yeah.
Now you drive a truck with diesel. I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, I mean, like, a little off topic, but I think that like it's funny because when you were just getting in, it was like easier to access people in reality, like in real life.
Yeah.
And like right now, so many people are super accessible via the internet, but there's also like so many dang people on the internet that like, people like you or people like, like Chris or anybody who's like well known in the animation community, their inboxes are probably like flooded with questions all the time. And it's like, you just don't have time to like talk to every single person that wants to talk to you.
Yeah.
And it's also like there is this level of like anonymity on the internet, and as like a larger creator, I know like there is a certain like caution, right? Like
you do run into some crazy people or some crazy situations where you're like, what is this person trying to do right now?
Yeah, and you're like a little afraid. You're like, oh.
Yeah, no, you definitely run into things where you're like, it can be a little scary,
Yeah, you're like, oh, if I think the larger your platform, the more scared you are of like saying something that could be misconstrued or like misunderstood, and then the entire internet is like, burn them. Like
my favorite, I love the rapper 2 Chainz. He was talking about that, and he was like, man, anytime that happens, just put your head down. Don't answer anybody, because that swarm of hate, it's coming at you. They find something else to hate. They go hate that the next day, and they'll forget about you, why they were
Mm-hmm.
ever angry at you. It's like,
Yeah.
I'll take that advice if that ever happens.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good philosophy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, back to animation programs as far as that, like, I think different schools have different strengths.
Uh-huh.
So like some schools I think have better storyboarding classes, some schools have like better animation classes. Um, Chapman is like good at giving you a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And like you have an option, right? Like you can concentrate in CG or you can concentrate in 2D. But
Yeah.
I do think it's kind of funny that like animation schools largely still focus on the animation, right? When
Yep.
like a
Yep.
lot of kids who go to animation schools want to be storyboard artists.
Yeah. I've taught at a couple different schools. I taught at Cal Arts. I taught at Art. What is it? The San Francisco Art.
CCA
Um, where
artists.
where Helen Chen went and Ryan Lang. Isn't
Oh,
it called Academy of Art San Francisco?
maybe. Yeah.
I taught up there, and one thing I found, I actually I enjoyed the way Cal Arts focused on story, because
Mm-hmm.
I was teaching life drawing, and they would just call me up and be like, "Hey, look, we want our kids to finish their student films. We're just canceling classes, so don't come teach." You know what I mean? Or like
Yeah.
they're like, "Hey, look, if your students don't show up because they're in their cubicle working on their student film, like we kind of want them to finish that student film. That should be their priority." And I thought that was a smart way to run a school.
Yeah, because
Where,
like if that's the most important end product, then why shouldn't you prioritize that? That is the one like that is the one downside of going to like a university versus a school. Because like for instance, like I was in the Chapman Honors Program, which was like technically my minor, right?
okay.
Which basically just meant I could study whatever cool niche subjects I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And like we have to write a thesis paper for that. I know you watched like a tiny bit of my presentation.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, so like I wrote like a 30, I think like a 39-page paper about what it means to be an ethical storyteller and like trying to be an ethical storyteller in a digital and global age. And like that's a huge undertaking. I've never written a paper that long. I know like med students and English students are like rolling their eyes at me because they write like 100-page papers. But like, you know, it was really hard to be able to like make sure I was getting all my work done, right? Because like even though I made it so that my schedule my last year was like pretty darn easy, like three classes, like senior thesis, my thesis paper, and then like one honors class, balancing that and like the research required for that and the interviews, like I interviewed a bunch of people, was like a huge undertaking. And I know that if I had had more time to dedicate to my student film, the animation probably would have been better. I would have like, you know, done more of like my backgrounds. Like I was lucky.
I have to say, even just talking to you over the last, I guess, few months, where you were at when you made your student film, and then the studying you've been doing and the amount you've gotten better since then has been pretty incredible to me, and watching your growth. And I also remember looking back at where I was graduating from college, the level I was at was not great, you know? So it's always cool to see some people skyrocket, you know, or they improve a ton and they really, you know, put in their studies and work hard. It was cool to see that with you.
Rad. That's very sweet of you.
Yeah. I'm also curious, for anybody watching along, if anybody else has questions about art schools or going to school, feel free to throw in questions as well.
Or like being post-grad. I know there's probably a lot of people in here who are like post-grad as well.
Yeah, I do feel like there's two things. One is half the time when you see a job post and you apply, they already knew who they were going to hire.
Mm-hmm.
And they were already going to hire their buddy or someone they know.
Yeah, or like intern.
They had to put the job post out. I would say it's 50-50. Sometimes they genuinely, their friend or the person they want got another job. They just they don't know. They're like, okay, now we got to look at the pool of people applying and pick the best person. But it tends to be 50-50. I wouldn't ever take it personally if you apply and don't get it. And then the other half is just improving your portfolio,
Yeah.
and getting your portfolio to that level where once it's the 50-50 where you are in that pool with other people, that yours is kind of rising to the top.
Yeah.
And that can take time sometimes. It can take up to 2-3 years after you graduate, which I think a lot of people don't realize. They think, oh, I graduate and I'll just get a job instantly,
No. No.
And I always recommend Concept Design Academy to people.
Oh yeah.
Because that's a great place, whether you went to college or not, that you can level up your portfolio faster.
Yeah, and it's way cheaper than taking classes like at college. Like I remember like I got out of my internship and then like I took your class online for the first time during like winter quarter of the next year. And I was kind of looking at some of the other people in the class who were like professional level already. Like some of them were revisionists and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was looking at their art and I was looking at my art and I was like, oh no. Like, yeah, I have a long way to go.
I would say don't let that discourage you, because I've seen people that are, and not to be offensive, I've seen people that are awful, like can't draw, like terrible. And within 4 years, they're working at DreamWorks and they're at a professional level because they put in the work. I want to answer this. So Chris Pimentel, are you related to Dave Pimentel? Chris, you're asking what is needed for a portfolio and what stands out at studios.
Well, that's for you.
Yeah. I wouldn't ever gear my portfolio for what you think others will want, because you can't hit that target because it's a moving target. There might be a new person there that day and they just happen to like X and you don't know what that X is going to be. You don't know what they're going to be into. So all I can recommend is make a portfolio that's like the stuff you freaking love, and just see where that lands, because that's going to land you the job you love,
Yeah.
And maybe you love Disney films. You love the way when you see artists like Norman LeMay or different Disney art, or Dave Pimentel, who I just mentioned, when you see them post, you love that style. And that means you're probably going to try to apply to Disney. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're going to be drawing in that style. But I would say chase the thing you love versus trying to chase what you think someone's going to like. But you only need one good sequence, 80 to 100 panels to get a job. One solid sequence is all it takes. And most people get a job based on one solid sequence. Because anything, you could tell, you just turn like 3 panels in, you're like, okay, this person's pretty decent. And then you keep going, you're like, oh, yeah, no, they're great, Yeah. You don't need 3-4 sequences to tell if someone can board or not.
Yeah, I think like at the beginning of COVID, like after I graduated, I made that one. Do you remember reviewing that one bee board that I made with like the bees in the chimney and stuff?
Vaguely.
Okay, yeah, good. Don't think about it. But like that was something I was trying to make because I wasn't good enough to do action yet, or like I wasn't confident enough to try action yet. So I needed action or comedy for like this thing I was applying to. And I was like, okay, let's do comedy. I'm not like a really great comedian, so I just took from like real life. But like you could honestly kind of tell that like my heart wasn't totally in that board. You could tell that like I was struggling, and like then at the end of your class a few months later, I was like, you were like, make something, original or whatever. And I was like, I woke up like the next morning and my brain was like, here's the beginning of this big story that I know you've been planning for a really long time. And I was like, we're making it, we're doing that. And like, I was so into it that those like thumbnails and those boards and those corrections were so freaking easy.
Yeah.
Like they just flowed off of my like hand and onto the page.
That kind of leads me to another thing is I'm a very lazy person. I don't ever want to work. I don't ever want to do anything. I just want to sit and chill. And I was waking up at 4 a.m. and working until 9 on personal projects and working all night on personal projects. Not because I went, let me schedule this time of day. Like, let me schedule in. Like, if I feel like if you have that mindset, like, I need to schedule in. And if you feel like you're not accomplishing projects and you're like, let me make a plan to tackle this. I don't know any human being that's like can do that. Maybe some people can. My opinion is try to find the thing that you're so freaking excited about that it literally wakes you up at 4 because you're like, oh damn, I gotta do this.
Yeah.
Like that's the trick.
You're like, oh, this is how it happens.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
Yeah. Because otherwise I'm just too lazy. I'm never gonna like be like, okay, I'm gonna wake up and work now. There's another question. When applying for college and are choosing the classes for what you want to be, what classes would you choose to be more eligible and learn to be a storyboard artist? So, like I said, I didn't go to art school. I went to engineering school. I personally learned on the job. I mean, there's great classes with schoolism. I teach an online class. There's a ton of online classes you could take. You could go to Concept Design Academy and learn
Chris and
how to
Justin's
board.
class.
Chris and Justin's class.
Shout out.
There's very few colleges that are up to date on their boarding teaching, because a lot of times, no knock on the teachers or anything, but sometimes they've been retired for a while. Mm-hmm. And they're teaching you the way they boarded 10 years ago, and the industry changes so fast that doesn't apply anymore. The job has changed so much. So I kind of think if you're going to go to college, it's just because you want a degree, but you're not necessarily going to learn. Like, you're kind of just going there to get the degree, and you're kind of have to learn how to board on your own time.
Yeah.
Honestly, I would do what Ife Sinachi did, who I interviewed the other day, which is he just was posting boards on Instagram, and people were seeing them, and then he got a job because people were like, these are cool boards. You know, and he's just consistently posting storyboards. I think that's actually right now, that is the best way to get into boarding, and people can watch you get better too, because they see you post them and they're like, yeah, these are all right, and then they start to see you get a little better, and they're like, oh, this person's getting better, and they see you get doing more and more, and they're like, oh, wow, they're getting good quick. We got to hire this person. Let's see. Any other good questions in here? Did you see any good questions, Kaylee?
I mean, they go by so fast. I think I saw one.
You can scroll them up and down, right?
Oh, I can? Oh my God. Wait. I feel so dumb. Okay, wait. There was like one specifically about college. Oh, there was one I saw that was like, I didn't go to college for art, but I want to get into animation. What should I do? Yeah. And I, like, from my perspective as a previous current student or recent student, like, if you didn't get, like, you know, an art degree or an animation degree, like, production is the way to go. Like, and I mean, a lot of internships are production because, like, they can't have students doing art. Like, they can't have students doing storyboards because a lot of the big studios are unionized. Yeah. So they would have to pay you a union wage, and they don't want to pay interns a union wage. Yeah. So most of them are just production. And, like, you don't have to have an artistic bone in your gosh dang body to work in production. Like, it helps, right? Because you understand the animation process. But if you don't, like, if you didn't get a degree in that, if you're not exposed to it, all you need to do is, like, have decent writing skills, like, have good communication skills. Even if you are an artist and you're looking to be, like, a storyboarder, communication skills are, like, so underrated. People are like, I can just do art and I don't need to be able to write a good email. Like, and one person that I was recently connected to through like a friend of a friend of a friend who's like kind of a titan, honestly. Like he told me like the reason I agreed to like talk to you and like have a Zoom chat with you is because your email was spell checked and like well written and professional.
Coherent.
Yeah.
The one that drives me insane is like the DM that just says hi. I'm like, are you gonna ask a question? Like, what am I supposed to say to that?
Hey.
Like, what? Okay, there's another good one here. A fellow UCSB. So I went to UCSB for engineering, but it says I don't even know what to ask. I just go to UCSB too, and I don't know what to do with myself.
Oh no.
Do you still have the daily Nexus? I pretty much learned how to draw doing 2 to 3 illustrations every single day and getting paid for them at the Daily Nexus, which is the school newspaper. And it's better than any art college. It like forced me, like, you know, when you sketch all the time, you're never really forced to figure anything out.
Mm-mm.
And then I had to hand ink and like finish drawings every night. And I remember it's like, okay, I'm drawing this person sitting at a table and it looks like the table's going through their stomach. And I just had to work it out until I could figure out how to make the character fit into the location. And I realized like, oh, I never did that because I would have left it a sketch and never finished it, you know? But the
Mm-hmm.
fact that I had to like finish the drawing, doing that 2 to 3 times a night, by the time I started at UCSB to the time I graduated, I was actually able to get published with Image Comics and stuff during college because of the Daily Nexus. So yeah, go work for the school newspaper. Yeah, yes, Daily Nexus is still a thing. All right, there you go.
Yeah.
Man, I used to just sit in there all night with my art buddies, and we'd all have our like. We had like the sable hair brushes you dip into ink, and your ink is like.
Ooh.
And I did not know that people used whiteout, so I just
Oh
assumed
no.
you don't make mistakes.
Oh, no. Hey, but actually, like, I think that was like hindsight. I think that was good for you then going into storyboarding because like you were like, ah, yes, I have very efficient strokes.
I do not hit the undo button. I just like, oh, that's a messed up line. That's what it's gonna be. I guess that's what it's gonna look like.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, Natalie Nurgit recently like posted this hilarious comic that was like just 2 little panels on Instagram. And it was one of those, it was like the how it started, how it's going meme.
Uh-huh.
But it was about like how
Oh,
it started and what her storyboards used to look like and how they look now.
yeah.
And I was just like, wow, that's a big move.
My biggest learning curve was I had a sequence due in 1 hour, but I still had about 50 to 75 panels to draw. And I went, okay, what is the fewest lines I could draw these characters with, because I need to get through all 50 of these. And it became, oh, I could draw it with 3 strokes? Why was I ever drawing more than 3 strokes in the past? You know, and it weeds out, because you're trying to finish this stuff so quickly. It just weeds out all the extra lines. Like,
Yeah.
I don't do a thumbnail. I don't do a rough drawing. I just go straight to a final drawing. But I'm able to do it in just a couple strokes, but it looks good enough for final.
Yeah.
But you almost can't learn that unless you have something due in like 5 minutes and it's not done yet.
Yeah. I mean, also like, I think you can really only start drawing like that when you do get in and you have a job.
Yeah.
Like, I was talking to Justin Copeland like recently, like yesterday or something, and we were talking about how like as an artist there is no like peak you can reach, and like, you know, Chris was like, you never stop getting better, like it is a summitless mountain, you know.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I feel like there's a check-in cabin at the bottom of a mountain, and like that is the level you need to be at to be industry ready. Right? That's where you get like your map and stuff, and then after that, like you just keep going.
Well, there's also something that happens maybe 3 years into the job where you start to realize which people are really successful at this, and you start to realize, like, wait, like your technical draftsmanship almost has zero bearing on how successful, and if you're going to become a director or a showrunner or whatever. And it's really, can you write an entertaining scene? And suddenly you just throw technical draftsmanship out the window. You're like, oh, this is like completely not important. Because like we would do a lot of live pitches at DreamWorks for the first, like when I started there. And so you would storyboard your sequence. You'd go into a room full of people. You'd pitch it live. You'd do the voices and everything. And it's almost like doing a stand-up set or like a comedy set. And if you can't affect the people in the room, you failed. Whether that means making them laugh, making them cry, making them feel a certain way, engaging them, entertaining them. And it didn't matter how well you drew. That's not going to help the engagement, you know?
Yeah.
In fact, a lot of times it hides the fact that the story is not great, you know?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that have like superb draftsmanship and like, you know, like maybe I love their drawings, but like, and I mean, I'm not a professional. I don't have that much experience. So, you know, grain of salt, but like, but I look at their story and I'm like, this isn't really about anything. Like, and in Kristen and Justin, Chris and Justin's class, they talk a lot about like, if your story's not good, nothing else matters. If something doesn't change by the end of this sequence, like the character or the environment surrounding the character or whatever, then it's not a good story. Like, you know, and you can draw like absolute poop, but if your story's like awesome, then you have a better chance than if like you draw super beautiful, but your story's like not about anything. It's just kind of things happen.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's definitely like your drawing skills will get you the job, but once you have the job, the way people move up is through you suddenly change lanes and suddenly you're focusing on your story skills. Yeah, that was something I wasn't thinking of, because when I got in, I was all about drawing, you know, and that it took me a couple years to change my headspace, you know. Yeah. I haven't thought to apply for college. Okay. Any other good questions? I need a teacher to teach me math.
Okay, like I'm really good at math, or I used to be, but probably not now.
I liked doing math, like back when I was in school. I thought it was fun.
Oh yeah, I like, okay, to be real with you, like I liked math up to the end of calculus, because like calculus makes sense. It is like a puzzle and patterns and like
you can understand it.
You figure it out.
Yeah.
After that, like literally, okay, wait, this is a side tangent, but when I was at Cal Poly, you have to take a really high level of math for an engineering degree. And I was in linear analysis, which is like theoretical math. And I was struggling. And I had this tutor who was like this older student. And, you know, one day I just happened to tell him like, oh, I think I'm actually like, I want to do animation. But I'm taking this class just to take it, like just to finish my math. And he was like, why would you want to do art? Like that doesn't do anything. Like engineers do stuff for the world and artists don't. And from that moment on, I was like, okay, you suck. And I'm gonna like do good in the world with art, but also I'm gonna prove to you that like I can take the highest level math class just because I can.
Man, when I took the highest engineering class, I don't even remember what the class was called, but after calculus, we had a test and I got a 7 out of 100.
Oh,
and that was a B, because most of the class got 0. me and like one other person got 7, and then one guy got like 10.
Oh my God.
And the reason was you had to be subscribed to like this math monthly magazine, and there was a new formula that had been invented that week.
Oh my
And we're
God.
all like, what the fuck? You're such an a-hole, man. You can't just teach us stuff. Like, it's got to be like cutting edge, weird
Like,
math
we are
that
paying
nobody
you.
understands.
Yeah. No, I honestly, like, I should have known I wanted to do animation back then because, like, I was living in the math building, like, constantly going to the teacher and, like, asking questions, whatever. Had a pack of expo markers in my backpack, was doing math on the windows of, like, the math building, but then I was also, like, drawing, like,
Yeah.
every hour. And, like, I can't believe that I looked at myself in the mirror and was like, yes, I still want to be an engineer. Like,
Man, I just was getting the degree. I wasn't gonna be an engineer. Like, I never thought, oh, I'm gonna go be an engineer. But I definitely was drawing shit, like all the stuff I was drawing it as if it was like 3D rather than like math equations. And like if we had material science, we do how the atoms could form together. I would draw it in 3 dimensions, and the teachers were like, what is this? I'm like, well, that's what's happening in 3D space. They're like, really? Whoa. But yeah, always just kind of sketching on the side of the homework.
And my teacher was like, I love these little doodles you do. I was like, thanks, man.
Well, I'm glad you ended up getting into art.
Yeah. No, I was like, I didn't even know, like, I was kind of like you, even though, like, I grew up with the internet, I didn't know about storyboarding. I didn't know you could work in animation. I don't know what I thought, like, movies just magically got made. But, like,
Yeah.
the reason that I got into it is because, like, my second year of college at Cal Poly, I went to Comic-Con for the
Hey,
first
look, Ring just
time.
joined. Sorry to cut you off.
Hey, what's up? I went to Comic-Con for like the first time, even though I'd lived in San Diego my entire life.
Oh, wow.
And I just happened to meet Sabrina Catugno, and like I talked to them about like storyboarding, and like my mom was also there, and my mom was very skeptical that I could work in animation and like make a living wage.
Yeah.
Even though she was an art teacher. And
well, I was shocked when I graduated. My friends that were going to art school and getting jobs, and my fellow engineers, all the engineers were making about $40,000 a year less than my friends coming out of art school. And I was like, wait, you got to be kidding me. They're paying you that much as a freaking artist? Like, what is going on? And like, I'm like, I don't want to be some broke ass engineer. I gotta get out of here.
Yeah. But like, you know, I talked to like Sabrina, and then I talked to like a few other people. Like, that year was like, what was that, like 2016? And it was back when like Noelle Stevenson was still in comics. And so there was a really small panel with Noelle on it, and I just like chilled with Noelle and talked a little bit after the panel. And like after that Comic-Con, I was never the same. I was like storyboarding all the way, baby. Like, we're gonna do this. Like,
oh man. This person said, hey, I'm working on my character design right now, and practicing studying anatomy and forms. What's your advice on what to include for a character design portfolio? I always, almost, like, I started in character design, and almost every character designer also does storyboards. There's just not enough work to do character design all the time. So a lot of times you'll be storyboarding, you'll find a job, you'll go do character design for a little bit, and you go back to boarding. It's rare that you only do character design. So I wouldn't recommend that as your entry point. I would get in through a different way, like boarding or something. Ang says, no way, artists get paid more. it's yeah, I'm always blown away, like coming from engineering and going over to art. I have this different type of viewpoint where I'm like, dude, I can't believe they're paying us this much to freaking draw. This is incredible. This job is so fun. I'm not doing stupid math equations all day. But then I notice a lot of people who came up through art schools, they're like, I should get paid more. And like, this job sucks. And I'm just like, wow, you don't know what it's like on the different side of things.
And like, to put it in perspective, like a full-time employed storyboard artist at a studio that pays union wages gets paid more than a teacher who has been teaching for 30 years.
Yeah.
You know? So like, that's a big deal.
It's I mean, yeah, I think it's a crazy job. And it also ranges wildly. So if you get into one of these kind of bigger studios, and then if you make a name for yourself, it's like, there's people getting paid $6,000 a week. It's like, it's a huge and wild range once you are working in it. Bye, Ang.
Bye.
Ang was our Kipo art director, everybody. So go follow her.
Ang is amazing.
Ango the Mango. Cool. I'm reading some more of these.
I know, I'm looking at them.
Everyone makes it sound the other way around. Engineering being paid more than art. There's just more engineering jobs. So like,
yeah,
it's probably easier to go to an engineering school and almost everybody graduating will find a job.
Yep.
I do feel like this is totally a thing. Out of 100 graduates at a school, it's usually 2 that are going to get a job in the art field. So it's not the same one-for-one comparison. Like almost every graduating engineer is going to go get some kind of engineering job. But yeah, even at Cal Arts, even at Art Center, you're looking at 2 people coming out each year that are incredible.
Yeah, and I feel like
that are ready.
The thing that people never talk about is like, even at, schools like Cal Arts that have a great reputation, and like the students going into there are already so skilled they could probably just have a job. Yeah. Like, but even those people graduating from there, like, you hear all the time about the people that come straight out of Cal Arts and like get an awesome job and like totally make it and are super successful. But that's like, anywhere from 2 to 10 people per class. What you don't hear about is all the other people that went to Cal Arts and are like still struggling to find a job.
Yeah, just moved back home or just never went into art. Same thing with our Art Center. But it's also like, I'm just of the opinion, if you're obsessed with it, you're gonna get there somehow. And like, when I was at UCSB, I was driving down on the weekends and sneaking into Art Center to the life drawing classes, and no one was going to tell me I wasn't going to become an artist at some point. I was just obsessed with it. Like, that's just what I was going to do no matter what. And it's kind of like, I would meet these people. I remember I would sneak into this guy's art class, and he's like, my own students don't show up for this class. I'm so happy there's someone here who wants to learn how to draw. And he would teach me stuff. And then I would meet these, like, I think they must have been rich kids who, like, their parents just paid for them to go to school, but they actually never drew. Or, like, they're just, like, they'd never drawn before. They're just like, I'm going to go to art school.
Yep.
And they show up, they draw once, they're like, yeah, I don't like drawing. And you're like, why are you here? Like, I was so jealous,
It's so expensive.
So that's also a reason why 90% of the people graduating just didn't really draw much while they were at school. Okay, let's see. We got some more questions. How do you begin to develop your idea for a story? Where the heck do you begin? I always start with inspiration. Like, what's the thing you love? What are you a fan of? And I always start with making your version of that. So, like, Kipo, my inspiration was Walking Dead and Game of Thrones. And I just can't escape that. It's like I look at it like the first caveman who painted on a wall and did an original drawing was the only person ever to do anything original. And ever since then, we've all just been riding on the backs of giants and been inspired by each other. So, yeah, what do you love? Make your version of that. Can be your jumping off point, or it could just be a personal story of your life, you know, set in a different scenario.
Yeah, I saw a really good question that I like have to address because I see this so much. Somebody said, like, do I have to have my own personal portfolio, or can I just have Instagram or Twitter? And my answer to that, based on like all the recruiters I've talked to, is please have a personal website, because like it needs to be efficient. Like recruiters and people looking for artists need to see that link. Everything needs to be in the same place. It doesn't need to be super fancy. Like just put your boards in PDF click-throughs on a scroll. Because like I see so many awesome artists, and like, you know, they could be young, like teenagers, or they.
Oh, you froze.
Oh, I want to be, you know, I want to go into animation. I want to whatever. They don't have a link to their portfolio at all. Like they don't have a portfolio. I'm like, that is literally the least you could do. Like you gotta make a portfolio.
So like when I was on Kipo or I was on other projects, the recruiting would just send us a list of names, but a lot of times it was just a link to their Instagram. So we would just click on the IG, check it out, and decide if we were going to hire them just on their IG. But that's a different scenario than like they have different requirements at different studios. So like Disney might not do that, you know?
Have both.
Yeah, have both.
That's the best answer. Have both. Definitely like, you don't need to make social media your life, but like having a social media presence is a big deal, because a lot of recruiters and like artists in, you know, leadership positions, they're looking on Instagram and Twitter.
Definitely. People are getting hired off of IG all the time. Someone said, is making a comic before pitching a series a good idea? It's the only way I've ever sold anything that's got made. So like I pitched for like 7 years before I sold a movie, and that was based off of a comic book I got published. Kipo was a web comic. I think it's really hard to sell just an idea. I think it's a lot easier to sell a book, a comic book, a children's book. Like some finished project is always going to be easier to sell than just, here's my idea. I don't know why that doesn't seem to work very well. Okay, cool. I think we got to wrap it up because these IG lives tend to tap out at about an hour, which is how long we've been on here. But thanks for joining me.
Yeah,
it's fun. And if anyone's hiring, hire Kaylee.
Please, I need a job.
Cool. All right. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.